Can this 35-year-old amp hooked up to a total of 26 speakers, including 8 subwoofers, is it possible we can power all this with a 45-watt amplifier? Well, stick around and we will find out. Today we're going to take a look at the almost 35-year-old Rockford Fosgate Punch 45 HD, which was an extremely popular amp at the time. We're going to try it several different methods in this video, so make sure you use video description below if you want to jump around, because it's going to have chapter markers. You can jump through and see the unboxing, the features, the specs, the amp dyno test. We're also going to test it with 26 speakers connected to it. Incredible. Then at the very end, we'll do the SPL test in vehicle with the 4 12-inch subs, see how it performs. So again, long video, check links below if you want to go straight to the chapter. Otherwise, sit back and enjoy the whole video. Roll that beautiful beam footage. It's 1992, you walk into your favorite Rockford Fosgate car audio dealer and find the Punch 45 HD sitting there on the shelf with its beautiful colored box. The awesome design on the box just looks like it wants to take your money. So in this case, this one did take my money. Back in 1992, I did find a dealer that had them for retail, which was $275. A lot of the dealers back then were selling them over cost because they were in such high demand, Rockford could not make enough. And yes, they came with an owner's manual. They came with a burst sheet, in this case, 88 watts per channel at 2 ohms, which is way over the rated power. And then we have the amp itself inside. At this time, Rockford named their Punch amplifiers based on their 4 ohm power combined. In this case, 45 watts total. Back then, Rockford had some of the best marketing in the business with all kind of literature that you could get from the dealers, just the way they set everything up. They had this ad in the magazine that showed a guy with a hammer, so they smacked the amps. Of course, they had all kind of really cool installs, like this 39 Studebaker, and here's a close look of it in video form. You can check old school vids on YouTube. He's got the full video of this. Pretty cool. Back then, Rockford Fosgate was kind of a status symbol. A lot of people wanted to use their products just because if you had a Rockford Fosgate, you were the man. But Rockford also liked to prove they could do entire systems with single amplifiers, like the 78 Corvette from Brad Griffin. It ran 12 speakers, including 2 subwoofers, with a single Punch 45. And of course, they had displays at the dealers that showed these amplifiers powering up to 16 speakers. Now for an amplifier this time, this was not very large, only 8.6 inches by 6.6 inches by 2.2 inches, which pretty small, would fit under most seats at the time. Again, back in 1992, if we take a look at the directories, the Car Audio and Electronics and the Car Stereo Review, we'll find the Punch 45 HD listed for $275, which is equivalent to $625 in 2025 if we account for inflation. Ratings provided by Rockford: 22.5 watts by 2 at 4 ohms, 35 by 2 at 2 ohms, or bridge 45 watts at 8 ohms or 70 watts at 4 ohms. Of course, these amplifiers were capable of running stereo and mono simultaneously using passive crossovers that could run up to 16 speakers according to their manual. They even showed you how to wire them up if you want to do this yourself. Now taking a look at the amp, you'll see the RCA inputs are not Tiffany style, unfortunately. There are 2 gains individual for each channel, left and right. Also, we have the power LED there in the center, let you know when it's on. Yes, it's red, and red means good at this time. It does have bass and treble controls for up to 18 dB at 45 Hertz or 12 dB up to 20K. And the speaker plug here on the left. Yes, our hated thing of these old amps is these Molex plugs with a wiring harness sticking out. In this case, I had to take a new one out of my stash so that we could wire it up for the amp test. Now on this other side of the amp, we just have 2 connections here for the power input. These are via spade connections, the ground and the positive. And they suggest a 15 amp fuse in line with this amp. I believe it came with the wire and also the 15 amp fuse if you bought it brand new. Now that we've seen the amp, the features, and the specs, let's try it on the amp dyno at 4 ohm stereo. It's rated 22.5 watts per channel at 12 volts. We're going to try it at 12.5 volts. 1 kilohertz. Here's a test certified to 1% distortion. Can we get the 22.5? Yes, we almost get double. 40 and 37 at 12.49. Now 2 ohms is rated 35 watts by 2. Let's try it here at 12.5 volts. Here we go, certified to 1% distortion, and we get, yes, almost 60 watts per channel at 12.4 volts. Now we bridge the amp to run a single speaker, in this case 70 watts at 12 volts is what it's rated, bridge mono. So let's try it at 40 hertz this time and see what we get here, certified to 1% distortion. Rated 70 watts, we get 102 at 12.47, so this amplifier is underrated for sure. Now if you'd like to see the enhanced amp dyno test, I tested it in all different modes over on Old School Stereo channel on YouTube. I'll have it linked below if you want to check that one out. You can see all the amp dyno tests. But for now, we're going to move on because we want to see this thing hooked up to all these speakers. But first, we got to take these 4 screws out of the side here so we can take a closer look at the internals and find out what makes this thing tick. Now the HD series included a hybrid design which had through-the-hole components as well as surface mount components. We have had some issues over the years with the input module, the HP BIM board. Those need to be replaced. But other than that, these amps have been rock solid, and amazing how well they've lasted over all these years, almost 35 years. I must say the most intriguing thing about this amplifier is we knew back in the day this amplifier did more than 22.5 watts per channel because we saw them running subwoofers, we saw them running walls of 16 speakers. We knew something was up. We're like, what's the special sauce that Rockford uses to get so much power, and how much is it really making? Well, that's the fun part about having an amp dyno. Now the other fun part is trying out this whole multiple speaker thing with one amplifier, running stereo, mono all together, running all these different speakers to see if it actually works. Now some of you may be thinking, how does it work? How can this amp run stereo and mono and all these speakers together? Well, it all boils down to passive crossovers, my friends. That's right, using different frequencies to go to different speakers and not overloading the amp. Using inductors, using capacitors, studying graphs like this to decide, what kind of components do I need to create my crossovers? You could actually do that. Or you could go the alternative route and find you an old school tri-mode crossover. I actually made a video about these 13 years ago. I'll leave the link below if you want to see it. These would allow you to go ahead and just buy this one device and hook up multiple speakers. Well, luckily we have one here today, the Phoenix Gold XVR4, which is what I'm going to use to hook up 26 speakers to this Punch 45. These allowed you to hook up your left and right channels to the crossover and then hook up your speakers to the other side. Very simple. Now again, in this case, we have 4 subwoofers here, 5, 6, 7, 8 different subwoofers. And for mids and highs, we have 3-way setup. We have another 2-way setup. Also 2 additional 2-way setups for a total of 18 mids and high speakers. 8 subwoofers. That's 26 individual drivers we're going to power by this Punch 45. But first, of course, we'll get the amp hooked up. We'll use the spade connectors here to hook up the power and ground using 12 gauge wire because that's all it needs. And then we will hook it up to the passive crossover here, just the left positive, left negative, right positive, right negative, going into the side here on the crossover. And on the opposite side, we're going to plug in the satellite speakers or the mids and high speakers. Here are the left ones, and then we'll hook up the subwoofer ones here in the center, and then we will hook the right channel up on the right side. Very simple connections here, but I'm going to talk more in detail about how I wired all the speakers. The mids and high speakers are all approximately 8 ohm. I think a couple of them, these might be 6 ohm speakers. So what I decided to do initially is run them all in parallel. That means all the positives go to one and all the negatives go to the other. But let's check and see what kind of ohm load we have here. And you can see it's a little low, 1.4 ohms for the mids and high channels. We'll check the other side, 1.4 also. Again, this crossover is designed for 4 ohms for the mids and highs and also 4 ohms for the subwoofer. So really, if I want my crossover points to be set correctly, I would need to change out the capacitors and even the coil. Now instead of doing that, I decided to rewire the mids and highs using series and parallel connections as shown here in the graphic. That way we could get a higher ohm load, which would give us a lower crossover point, which will show here 5.4 ohms is much better than 1.4. Although it's not 4 ohms, it's closer. As far as how the subwoofers are wired, the quad box has two 2-ohm connections. So I wired those in series, which gives me 4 ohms. So wiring the two SPL 10s in series gives me 8 ohms. Wiring the two Funky Pup 4 ohms in series gives me 8 ohms. Wiring those in parallel gives me 4 ohms. So I have 4 ohms for the quad box and 4 ohms for all the other speakers combined, wired in parallel, which gives me 2 ohms. Let's check and see if we're right. And here's the wiring of the subs. There you can see it is set to 2 ohms or right at it. Again, this is resistance, not impedance. When we provide music, things like that, we're going to see box rise, we're going to see impedance rise. So it will not stay steady at 2 ohms, but that's what it's wired to for initial status. Now the part you wanted to see, let's try the 26 speakers with the Punch 45. Are you ready? Turn it up. Just wanted to show you there that everything is powered by this one amp. I'm going to turn it back on. You may have noticed in that segment that we got some distortion in the mids and highs, and that's what happens when you use one amplifier like this in this tri-mode setup and it runs out of steam. It's unfortunate that the mids and highs are usually what give out first, and that's where you can tell about the distortion. But still massively impressive that this 45 watt amp, the Punch 45 HD from Rockford Fosgate from 1992, can power 24 speakers, or 26 if you count all the mids here, total, to an incredible sound. I mean, it's amazing what this little amp can do. And this is what they did back in the day. This is how people ran their whole system off of one amplifier. What do you guys think? Pretty cool, huh? Yes, I'm impressed as well, but I do want to do some SPL testing by throwing the quad box into the Sequoia to find out how much sound pressure we can get out of this amplifier and the 412s. Because we want the Punch 45 to see a 4 ohm bridge load, we're going to wire the connections here in series. Each one is 2 ohms, so wiring in series should give us a 4 ohm connection to the amp. All right guys, so we have the Punch 45 HD hooked up here in the Sequoia with the 412s. I don't know if you can see them back there, but they are definitely back there behind the seat. We have the amp hooked up down here beside me, and we're gonna try it out and see what kind of SPL we get. Hopefully we don't bother the neighbors. Whoops!
This is not a Mickey Mouse program!
Here we have the Punch 45 HD hooked up. We also have the SSA meter. Again, we're measuring SPL from the kick panel. And we have the phone connected to the SPL meter via Bluetooth. So again, this is not just an app. This is connected to that meter. And we're gonna try it out with the quad box and see what we get here with this Punch 45 HD from 1992. What do you think? 45 watt amp, 412s, should work, right? Sure, let's find out.
A windshield crack, an expensive prize, but it's worth every penny, all cents aside.
All right, here we go. Let's try 48 hertz in the Sequoia kick. Here we go. There you can see 135.09. See if we picked up the power. Wow, only 55 watts at 12.3 ohms. Maybe we can wire it in parallel. So I had this wired in series before, which just means I wired the outside, the other outside to the amp, and then the two internals together. But now we're gonna wire it in parallel, which means we're gonna hook up negative to negative and positive to positive, and that way we can wire it lower. Let's try it. All right, so we have it wired in parallel. Again, positive to that positive, negative to that negative, and let's flip the box back around and let's try it again.
Me from you is the checks assigned. Better check the signs, put some checks aside. We've got sun down.
The 33-year-old Punch 45 HD is wired at 1 ohm mono here in the Sequoia with the quad box. We're gonna try a burst 48 hertz, see what we get. All right, there you see 137.50, and with the new battery we do have accurate measurement here. 2.4 ohms, 136 watts from the Punch 45 HD 33-year-old amplifier, pushing the quad box to 137 dB. That is insane.
As long as I'm breathing, I'ma stretch the ride. King Kong in the trunk, mean drop of the bump. D-Wiz verified the air bump.
All right, my friends, one final try. We're gonna see if we can surpass that one number that we haven't yet. Here we go. Quad box wired at 1 ohm mono, Punch 45 HD on the scene. Can we get it? Let's find out. So we bust a 139.25 at 1.4 ohms, 172 watts from the Punch 45 HD. Pretty crazy, right? Yes, that's insane. I did not mention, but I did have the driver's window rolled down for that test, but still 139.25 dB, sick. Now let's find out how it flexes with some music. Check it out. All right, we're gonna try some bassotronics here. Got the amp turned on. Let's bump it. All right, let's try the woofer test song. All right, guys, there you have it, my completely exhausting and extremely detailed video of the Rockford Fosgate Punch 45 HD from 1992. Now, if you're interested in me trying any other amplifier in this same kind of scenario, let me know in the comments below. I do already have an idea, though, of trying the Punch 150 HD, which was another huge seller at the time for Rockford Fosgate. Let me know what you think about the SPL test, power and 26 speakers. Could you believe it? Pretty crazy, right? Thanks always for watching. Make sure you smash me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. It's free to subscribe. If you want to join and get early access to the videos, you can do that as well. Thanks always, guys. Till next time, Big D, I'm out of here.
shit by hard, bro. Listen, y'all bump that shit too hard. Got Big D Wiz in the trunk. Bump that shit too hard. Got Big D Wiz in the trunk. Bump that shit too hard. Got Big D Wiz in the trunk. This shit thick reckless. The way we live too rough. Shit, I gotta testify. What test me is y'all better check the ride. A lot of y'all seem to wanna test my pride. That's cool cause I've never been no less than 9. 4 G's on the system, any less a crime. The trunk breaks open when I flex the vibe. A windshield crack and expensive prize, but it's